Happy Monday, y'all. This is Charlene from Lady in Waiting 222's vlog. And today is our Monday mini devotional. So I wanted to share something with you that I wrote about recently as I was reflecting on the week leading up to Jesus's death, burial, and resurrection. I was particularly focused on that Thursday or the night before his death. And I was thinking about some of the things that he was maybe feeling, thinking about what was going on in his mind, knowing the horrific death that he was about to face, right? I want you to put yourself in his shoes for a minute and just think about, what would you be doing if you knew that this was going to be your last night on earth? Surely as we read through the Gospels, we'll see, one can gather a few things that were probably on Jesus's mind. You see in Matthew's account, while Jesus and his 12 disciples are sitting at the Passover meal, he speaks very candidly about one of his disciples, Judas, who would betray him, right? If you read in Mark, you see the same thing in Mark's account. Talk about an opening statement for a dinner conversation, right? Even in Luke's account, although he addresses it later in the conversation, he does mention it. And he addresses the same thing in the Gospel of John later on in that passage. But what is interesting is the act and what Jesus was doing in that particular gospel, in John's gospel, in John chapter 13. And that's what we're going to be focusing on for a few moments. It's interesting that Jesus did bring up the betrayal, right? But it was only after he addressed, or he did this, what would seem like an odd act, right? Odd thing. He chooses to wash the disciples' feet the night before he goes to the cross. Now, anybody who knows me, I don't do feet, y'all. You can have the prettiest, most beautiful, manicured, cleanest feet on earth, and I still cringe at the sight of it, or the thought of it. I only do my own, and that's about it. And I guess if Jesus, the King of Kings, right, who had been given all authority over everything, could wash feet, I guess I could too. But here's the thing. Let's think about that for a minute. Why would the Son of God, who had come from God and would be returning to him, as we hear in John's account, why would he had all authority over everything, be found the night before he died, positioned low, right? It's the posture of humility, to the ground, washing dirty feet. John tells us this very key verse, and that's our text for today. John chapter 13, verse 1, it says, because he loved them to the very end. Of all the things Jesus could be doing, right? Jesus willingly chose to wash the feet of those he had loved during his ministry on earth, even the one who would later deny him, Peter, and the one who he knew in just a few moments would betray him. Let that sink in for a bit, right? It was less about the practical task of washing one's feet, but the example that Jesus intended to communicate, that I want us to think about, of loving them to the end, to the very end. Whoever them is, you fill in the blank, you know who them is, right? That you would posture yourself low to the ground, that you would wash their feet, maybe practically or in a metaphorically sense, getting low to the ground, humbling yourself, serving that person, right? That was the message behind what Jesus was trying to communicate in that passage, right? That those who may have authority, those who may carry a title of master or servant, even those who may be messengers, or even the one who sends the message, we should all have a heart posture of an humble servant. Who is it that you have to love, or God has called you to love them to the very end? Who is that? Who came to mind? And maybe that person might have betrayed you. Maybe that person might have denied you, denied they ever knew you, rejected you. This was loving to the end. All should do as Jesus did. That was our example, right? He became the example, right? The one who had all authority was both teacher and Lord, as he mentioned in that text. All he had done, he did that. That was how he loved to the end. And you think about it, Philippians chapter 2, verse 7 and 8 tells us that he stripped himself of all privileges and rightful dignity so as to assume the guise of a servant, in that he became like men and was born a human being. And after he had appeared in human form, he abased and humbled himself still further and carried his obedience to the extreme of death, even the death of the cross. He didn't misuse or abuse his authority. He didn't throw his weight around. He wasn't beating his chest saying, "I am king," or whatever it is people say. Nor did he demand that others wash his feet, when he very well could have, because of who he was and who he is. Instead, on his last days on earth, he loved to the end and demonstrated it by washing feet. And as you think about that today, may you consider the King of Kings, who became the epitome of an humble servant for you and I. He was obedient to the point of death on a cross for you and me. And I pray that you are challenged, encouraged, and that you think about the person that God is calling you to love to the end. I pray you're encouraged by this message, challenged, blessed, and I pray that you all have an awesome week. Until next time, take care.